Hey guys, welcome into another YouTube video. In this video we're going to be talking about which GPUs have different advantages and disadvantages. So I'm only going to be comparing the most recent series of cards from each of Nvidia and AMD. So for Nvidia that's the 30 series, AMD is the 6000 series. Start off on the left. So the 30 series has the higher mega hash on their larger cards. So if you think about the maximum hash rate you can get from a 6000 series card is 64, but the maximum you can get from a 30 series card is like 125, maybe 126, depending on how lucky your silicone lottery is on a 3090. So pretty much double. If you have a limited number of slots for some reason, then yeah, you can get a lot more mega hash on fewer cards in the 30 series. And that flows on to the next one, the density of mega hash. So in one rig, assuming that rigs are a maximum of 12 cards, because any motherboards you get that can support more than 12 cards get very inefficient in terms of dollar per card it can host. Like you can get the 19 card ones, but they cost a lot of money, like $600+, although it depends on currency you're talking in. And they also have various limitations on which cards can go in which slots and stuff like that. So 12 cards, 3090s, you get 1.5 gigahash. If you had a 12 card of 6000 series cards, the most you'd be getting is like half that, 750 megahash. Another pro for the 30 series is they're easy to overclock. There's only two settings that you need to worry about. It's the core clock and the memory clock, and that's it. You adjust the usually actually I don't even know, core clock or mem clock first, doesn't really matter, so long as you get them reasonably well done in the first shot, and then you can adjust one first and then the other, and it doesn't really matter too much which order you do it in, so long as you get them to their most efficient setting. Whereas with the 6000 series you've got a lot of work to do when undervolting them. So the lower end cards are slightly cheaper in terms of mega hash per dollar than the 6000 series cards, so it's another positive. Obviously we're only looking at ETH mega hash per dollar there. If you look at Ravencoin, they're also cheaper mega hash per, dollar per mega hash. And I haven't checked the other two algorithms that we compare here today, but we do look at Flux and Ergo as well. So another pro for the 30 series, they are more versatile on like various other algorithms. The 6000 series are only really strong in like ETH and Raven. They're super strong in those two, but and the 6600 card is efficient on Flux, but it's like pretty much it. They're not great at like all round on every other algorithm. We look at, I think it's four algorithms here today, and yeah, the 6000 series does really well on two of them, okay on Flux, and then pretty badly on Ergo, and then a lot of the other like alternative coins, similar performance to Ergo, how the 6000 series is just terrible. So the 3070 and 3070 Ti are very efficient on Flux at a 0.37 sol per watt. This can be beaten by the 6600 at 0.39 sols per watt. It can also be beaten by like the 2080 Ti and a couple of other older cards that get up to like 0.41 or so sols per watt on Flux. So yeah, they are very efficient on that, but the rest of the cards not as much. And also, yeah, the 30 series is much more efficient on Ergo than the 6000 series is. the cons for Nvidia 30 series cards. So they're less efficient on ETH and Raven and Flux. So they're the 3070 and 3070 Ti are actually more efficient than most of the 6000 series. I go into the placings in the next couple of slides, so wait out for that, and they'll show you the order of the efficiencies. Another con, the 3090 is the least efficient card on Flux, like by a long shot. It's yeah, terrible. 3090 actually is just all round a terribly inefficient card. Yes, it does have like the highest performance in terms of the megahash on pretty much every algorithm. So if you have really cheap electricity, it might be better. And like if you don't have a lot of time or whatever to put rigs together, you want to spend the minimum amount of time possible, 3090s are a good option. Yeah, in this video I'm not going to tell you what card to buy or anything or which one's better. I'm just discussing the pros and cons. So yeah, 3090s do have their positives and their negatives as well. So some people in some circumstances will want them, other people won't. Yeah, next, 3070 Ti and higher, they usually require thermal modifications. Usually that's just changing the thermal pads and then repasting the core. But sometimes even that isn't quite enough to do it, especially if you're doing high power draw algorithms like Ravencoin or dual mining Ton and Ethereum. And then subsequently you void the warranty by doing any thermal mods because you have to remove the warranty sticker. Yeah, and most of the 30 series cards require rig fans and decent spacing. The 3060 is probably the only one that doesn't. I've got a couple of 3060s, LHR ones unfortunately, and they basically they're the only two cards in that rig that don't have a rig fan pointed at them. They're just straight in the motherboard. The rest are on risers and spaced out in order to have enough cooling. Yeah, the other cards, like the 3080s specifically, even though they've really good quality thermal pads and paste, and it's been redone, and I've even added in like more pads than necessary, made them cover more space where I can, and the results are really good. Like the temps are really good. They still are my hottest cards. They're the only ones that, you know, require me to keep checking on them. My 3060 Ti's on the core, they get quite hot, and the 3080s on the memory are the two cards that they're the ones that I always have to, you know, get my phone out and check, like what are the temps doing on a really hot day. Or if I leave both doors closed, like I got my garage door closed internally and externally, then yeah, the room gets really hot, and those are the cards that I need to check on. Yeah, they often can't handle high power algorithms like I was saying before. Ravencoin or ETH plus Ton. If you haven't done the thermal pad and thermal paste replacement recently, you might not be able to run those algorithms without having temperature problems, depending on the rest of your setup and everything. Next, you need lots of PSUs versus the number of GPUs. So just something that I was seeing earlier. Someone had a 3090 rig and they had 1300 watt PSUs, and just three 3090s they were asking a question actually if one 1300 watt power supply was enough for three 3090s, which it is, but as I was thinking about it, like, damn, that's a lot of money to have two 1300 watt power supplies. Like I'm obviously in New Zealand, different currency, but those 1300 watt power supplies cost around 500 New Zealand dollars, or like 480 or something. So that's like almost 1,000. So maybe like 750 US dollars or so for two of those. Like that's a lot of money on just power supplies. I spend a lot less than that on power supplies for AMD rigs. Obviously I get a lot less mega hash than someone who's got a full 6 card 3090 rig, because that's like obviously 120 plus mega hash per card. But still, even with the equivalent mega hash on AMD, I would obviously be a lot more efficient and wouldn't require anywhere near as many power supplies. Alright, that pretty much sums up the 30 series cards. Moving on to talking about the 6000 series. Personally, these are my favorite cards, but don't just you gotta make your own decisions on these, because there's various pros and cons to each card, or each series of card, and then also each card within the series. So yeah, the 6000 series is extremely efficient on ETH and Raven, especially the 6600 non-XT. It is the most efficient gaming GPU on ETH, Raven, and that's it, just ETH and Raven. It is the most efficient that we're looking at here for Flux as well, at 0.39 sols per watt, but that can be beaten by a couple of older GPUs like the 2080 Ti. So along with that very high efficiency, these cards don't require rig fans, they don't require server cases, and they don't require thermal mods. So that's a huge positive in my opinion. With the 30 series cards, you chuck the example I did before was 12 3090s, so you chuck 12 3090s in a rig, you've got 4 1300 watt power supplies, or maybe 1200 watt server ones or something. And then you probably need a whole lot of cooling. They're probably way too close together. You need probably server fans, I'd say, for that. Might need a whole server case. You definitely need to replace the thermal pads. And now compare that to a 6800, which gets half the mega hash, but doesn't require any rig fans. Won't need a server case. Won't quite fit on most riserless motherboards because the heatsink's a little bit too big. But if you get like a slightly more spaced out riserless motherboard, you can actually fit them in, and you don't need to do any thermal modifications. You probably, for a 6800, you could probably set it at 40% fans. That's what I have mine at, I think, or maybe even 30, with no rig fans at all. So they're great. They're even more efficient because there's no rig fans. Obviously, rig fans use power between like 5 watts for like a very cheap fan, or I suppose you can even get even less watts. I think there's like 0.2 amp ones, which are like, maybe 3 or 4 watts in the end, maybe as low as 2 watts, but most fans you're looking at between 5 and 15 watts. If you get into the server fans, they can use a lot more, like closer to like 50 or something. I've got a couple of extremely high power. They're actually ASIC fans as opposed to server fans, but pretty much the same thing. And yeah, they use like 50 plus. They're at like, one of them's like a 5 amp and the other one's 6 or something. So yeah, 5 times 12 is numbers 60 watts. So if you're having to use a server fan, like I used to have to use server fans for my 3080 Ti's, I managed to swap those for two 3080 Ti's for 3080 full hash rates. So yeah, I was happy with that. Slightly less thermal issues there. So that's another benefit to not having to use the rig fans, is you're then even more efficient again. Yeah, as I stated before, the 6600 is the most efficient card that we're looking at here on Flux. Can be beaten by some of the older cards on Nvidia side. The cards can be packed very close together, so I just did a video recently. I have a can't remember, I think it's a S37. It's a riserless motherboard that has the closest together spacing, and I put 8 6600s in it, and yeah, they're very close together. You can't get your finger between them, but the temps are still fine. No problems with the temps at all. So yeah, they can be packed very close together. Yeah, as a next point, yeah, no temp issues using riserless motherboards. If you tried to pack any of the Nvidia cards in like that, anything over a 3060 Ti, you wouldn't, even some of the 3060 Ti's, you wouldn't even be able to fit into that same riserless motherboard, which then gets rid of that pro of being able to purchase very cheap riserless motherboards. If you start going to the more spaced out ones, then they are more expensive, and also if you have to use risers in order to separate them out, you're using more space, and then you're using risers, so you're paying for risers, and then you're also decreasing your efficiency a little bit because risers increase your power draw. Yeah, so next benefit to using the 6000 series is it's less stress on the GPU. If you're mining, say, Raven coin on a 30 series card, you're going to be like putting a lot of stress on the GPU, the core in that specific scenario on Raven, because you're overclocking the heck out of the core and it gets extremely hot. Whereas if you look at that same algorithm on the 6600, say, or any of the 6000 series, the core isn't really going to get hot at all. Like, honestly, it seems counterintuitive that it's a core-based algorithm and yet the core doesn't get hot. But yeah, these AMD cards, if you undervolt them properly, which I have videos on undervolting them for most of the 6000 series cards, then yeah, if they're undervolted properly, barely gets hot at all on Raven. And yeah, there's less stress on the GPU, and the other factor is that the overclocks. So with 30 series, you push the memory clock as high as it can possibly go because it just keeps increasing the mega hash. But on the 6000 series, doesn't work like that at all. If you go over like the best, most peak memory clock for that GPU, then it stops being efficient at all. You lose mega hash. So yeah, there's no benefit to ruining your cards by overclocking the hell out of them. Yeah, so generally AMD cards that have been mined on won't quite be as ruined as 30 series cards. Not to say that mining ruins cards, because if you do it properly, it doesn't at all. And the last point I got there, opposite of the 30 series, is just less PSUs needed. Like, I've got the my 6600 rig all on a 750 watt power supply. So that's 8 cards on a 750 watt power supply, getting around 231 mega hash. So to get that same mega hash, you'd need, well, half the amount of 3070s or 3060 Ti's. So yeah, like 4 3060 Ti's or 3070s, which you could probably get away with putting on the same power supply, but probably not. Especially if you switch algorithms, you'd need to be mindful of how much power that's going to draw. The only one that I can't really mine on that rig is ETH plus ton, at least not at the full 1800 core clock. If I scale it back, then it should be fine. Yeah, I'll do some testing on that in the future at some point. Moving on to the cons for the 6000 series. I mentioned before the 750 mega hash is pretty much the max for the rig, which is half the max for a 30 series rig. Just 12 of 6800, 800 XT, or 6900 XT. Next is slightly more expensive, dollar per mega hash, depending obviously on your area. It's only a small margin in my country for brand new in terms of dollar per mega hash, and if you look secondhand, I actually can do pretty well. Like recently I got a 6600 for $460, which is really good. Next up, they're less efficient on Ergo and other alt algorithms, so they're not going to be like perfect for every single algorithm out there after ETH moves to proof of stake, so you have to consider that. Next up, they're complex to undervolt. If you don't know how to undervolt them and you just never do it properly, then you're not going to get any of these efficiencies. Like I can claim all the numbers I like. If you buy one of these cards and then you don't undervolt it properly, you have it set on something else, it's obviously not doing the numbers that I'm claiming, so you have to actually put in the work to get these results. And yes, it does take many man hours. I could probably given like the looking at my videos and just taking the overclocks that I've got for a similar card and then applying them to yours and playing around with it, you could probably get it done in like an hour or so with like a full rig of the same card, or if you've got a mixed rig, like an hour for each type of card. So it's gonna take a long time to actually sort all that. If you're like, say you're a business with large overheads, like you've got a lease on a building, you've got employees, you've got various other like insurance and expenses like that, you might be more inclined to go for 3090s. You're going to get the greatest profit per man hour put in. So like building a 12 card 3090 rig takes like the same time as building a 12 card 6800 rig, but you've got, well, actually it'd take less time because the overclocking is easier, and then you'll be making like double the amount of mega hash. So yeah, it's does have its benefits. Like there's definitely places you'd want to have those cards even though they're less efficient. Just all things to consider really. Alright, so I've just got, in the next few slides, I've just got the placings for each card on each algorithm. I don't have all the numbers here, they're in a separate document, and they're also, all the 6000 series information is in all my other videos, which has all the overclock settings and all that. So this is just for a quick comparison on like which GPU you'd like to buy. You can see on Ethereum that the 6000 series performs much better. The only one that does like really well on the 30 series side is the 3070 full hash rate. So that's a very efficient card, and actually the 3070 full hash rate, it does very well on a lot of other algorithms as well. So there's that to keep in mind as well. You'll see it in the next slides. The most efficient GPU here being the 6600, then 6600 XT, and the least efficient being the 3080 Ti, then 3070 Ti. Obviously both of those are LHR cards, and there are no full hash rate versions of those cards. Next up is Ravencoin. So you'll notice that GPU 1 and 2 are the same, 6600 then 6600 XT, so long as they are overclocked and undervolt correctly. If you haven't done that properly, then yeah, it's not going to quite get the same numbers, and they probably won't be in the placings, in the same placings. And then the least efficient 3080 Ti again, 3090, and then 3070 Ti again. Flux So yeah, we've got 6600 in first, but it's kind of an anomaly. The rest, like second and third, is 3070 and 3070 Ti. Yeah, back and forth a bit. 6600 XT is fourth, 3080 fifth, 3060 sixth, 6800 seventh, eighth, and then ninth back to 30 series, 10th 30 series, 11th 12th 6000 series, and finally 13th 3090s. Yeah, so the 3090 is not very efficient, neither is the 3080 Ti. Interestingly, this is the 3070 Ti's dominant algorithm. It's actually really efficient on Flux. It's about the only algorithm that it's efficient on, I believe. Oh no, sorry, it is also efficient on Ergo. That 3070 Ti got two algorithms. Okay, yeah, on to Ergo. So you'll see now we've had a bit of a switch. We started off with two good algorithms for 6000 series, and then we had a mixed one, and now it's just gone completely the other way. 1 through 6 is 30 series cards, and then only then do we get over to the 6000 series, which is the 6600, always the most efficient on the 6000 side. So yeah, 7th, then 6800 in 8th, and the XT variant in 9th, 3090 in 10th, so 3090s, yeah, pretty bad efficiency on pretty much every algorithm, so yeah, I wouldn't really be recommending people get that, but I mean, it's there are still some circumstances where it can be the best card to get, like I was saying before, if you have low power costs, but maybe high man hours, or you have to pay employees, high overheads, etc. Yeah, and the least efficient cards being the 6900 XT and the 6700 XT. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got in this video. So yeah, to like sum that up, there's a lot of differences between the cards. They each have their strong suits. If you don't apply the correct overclocking, none of these numbers are actually going to line up. I recognize that a lot of people are going to contest some of these numbers, and yeah, it's probably best that you look at the videos that I've made for those numbers that you don't trust, like for example Flux being the most efficient on 6600 being the most efficient on Flux. I think some people are gonna not like that number, but I've done it, I've tested the power draw from the wall, so like I've proven it in my head. It might not feel proven to you. If you go and watch that video first, I might be able to convince you, but yeah, other numbers in there people might not trust. I know a lot of people will think that 3070 full hash rate is just the most efficient card that you can get, but this shows, like my numbers show, that there's two cards that can beat it. Yeah, so people aren't probably not going to be too happy with that. But I've done the testing for these 6000 series cards. I know these are what I've got. Some people will be able to get even better than these on their 6000 series cards. It's just the nature of the different models of cards within 6000 series. Same with 30 series, you just get a different card. Like the Noctua cards are extremely efficient, and then over on the 6000 series side you've got the ASRoCs, which are really efficient. My 6700 XTs and 6800, they are both Sapphire Pulse, which is actually not as efficient on the sides. So yeah, if I had ASRoCs of those cards, maybe I'd be able to get better numbers. If I owned a 6800 XT and 6900 XT, I might be able to confirm that you can get lower numbers, but I don't actually own either of those, so I've taken those numbers from other people online, which is actually really hard to do for the 6000 series, trusting other people's numbers. That's why I try to take the time to put all the information I can into my videos. I show the power draw at the wall. I tell you like the math that I'm using, like subtracting the system idle and all that. Yeah, so I try to do the most accurate numbers possible and give the proof as well, so that you can see it and trust it and believe it, and the overclock settings so that you can copy it as well. Yeah, if you have any concerns about the numbers, just go check out those videos, and that's pretty much all I've got for this video. Yeah, thanks for watching. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel, and have a great day. See ya.